Anna Camp and Ethan Embry are the Ghostface killers at the end of the movie. Now that I've got all the spineless Scream fans out of the way, let me try explain myself a little bit. You may have clicked on this video expecting this to be a regular review, judging solely on whatever clickbait title I end up giving this. However, this most certainly will not be that. Sorry to disappoint people who are familiar with the channel, but this video is going to be a little different. I have very strong opinions on how Scream 7 has been handled. We're really living in the timeline where Scream has evolved into the Stab franchise, which is the in-universe horror franchise based on the events that happen in the movies. We really be getting the Republican Scream movie if you look at the timeline of administrations of which the most newest movies have been coming out in. It really does suck to see what's happened with Scream, as I'm a pretty big fan of this franchise. I genuinely consider the first movie to be a masterpiece of a horror movie, and kind of as a film in general. I think Wes Craven, may he rest in peace, did a phenomenal job at writing and directing that movie. It has some of the most perfect blends of horror and comedy, which in general are simply genres of the same coin when you really think about it. But how exactly did we get here? I don't think it's too surprising to anyone, especially fans of the franchise, but for the very few that are uninformed, around 2024, lead actress of Scream 5 and 6, Melissa Barrera, who is also known for movies like Abigail and In the Heights, was very outspoken about something that for some fucking reason seems to be a sensitive topic, especially if you're a celebrity. That's right, she advocated for a free Palestine, which translates to she is against literal children being fucking butchered in their own country, which already existed long before a certain other country started occupying Palestine. I gotta be very careful what I say in this video, as this could quite possibly be my last, guys. Who knows? For a good while, she was very outspoken about this, which resulted in her being fired from the Scream franchise by the company that owns it, being Spyglass. I do fully believe that this is more the studio's problem and not the actual directors of Scream 5 and 6, who are the guys behind Radio Silence. At the same time, I haven't heard them talk about the topic. However, they didn't come back for Scream 7 too, so there could be another correlation there. Another correlation is the fact that after Melissa was fired, Jenna Ortega, who plays Barrera's sister in Scream 5 and 6, pulled out of the movie in solidarity, which I know for a fact made Spyglass shit themselves, as to an extent, Jenna Ortega is pretty much the biggest star besides the main cast of the original movies that they had in this new installment to the franchise. Ortega, as everyone knows, is also very outspoken about Palestine, so her decision to pull out of the movie is incredibly respectable. So, with two of the main leads gone, where could the franchise go from here? They were setting up a pretty interesting story from 5, as we had essentially the new generation since, spoilers if you haven't seen Scream 5, but we learned that Melissa's character is the daughter of Billy Loomis, one of the killers in the first movie. There was a really interesting angle touching on the topic of generational trauma. There was even a rumor that the original plans for Scream 7 would lean into Melissa's character becoming the Ghostface of that movie. To an extent, I think this idea of a Scream movie from the killer's perspective could be interesting. I'm just not so sure that her character in particular should have ended up being as it. I feel like the arc that they were giving her wasn't fully leaning into that like some people claim. So you see, Spyglass had to quickly think about what the fuck they were gonna do, and what's really funny is that when Scream 5 came out, Neve Campbell, who plays Sidney in the first movie, came back as it was a legacy sequel. In Scream 6, she didn't return, and the writers had to write her out of the movie. The real reason she wasn't in the movie is because she wasn't being paid enough. I thought at the time she had every right not to come back. Besides Ghostface, I feel like Neve is the literal face of the franchise, which the company certainly knew, because when it came to casting Scream 7, they certainly must have realized they had to pay her a shit ton of money if they wanted to bring her back, because she appears in Scream 7. I would love to see or hear what her salary was for this movie, because she came back without any question. I can't fully complain to every actor that's in this, but I'm kind of going to anyway. It's hard not to imagine everyone involved probably knew what was going on behind the scenes, so it does border on being a little spineless to appear here. To an extent, even Jasmin Savoy Brown. She was a character introduced in Scream 5 who was related to Randy Meeks from the first movie, and she basically took up the role of being the film nerd in the group. She comes back for 7, which I do wonder how that works if both Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega don't come back yet, but her and Mason Gooding do. She talked about it online, giving some PR trained bullshit excuse, basically saying, yeah guys, I know it's a little awkward me being here, but to soften the blow, I gave my character she, they pronouns. Look, obviously, I'm not going to be one of these grifters who cry about pronouns and everything. FUCKING PRONOUNS! I think that is the least bit of advocacy you can do in your movie, considering everything else that's happened in terms of going on here. It sucks to hear people like David Arquette and fucking Matthew Lillard come back into this too. They have a way of bringing these characters back in such a topical way by bringing them to life with AI, which understandably could be done well, as it's always topical. It could be interesting commentary on how dangerous it could be, but I can't imagine they do that when you consider some of the marketing that has gone into this movie. If the handling of making this movie wasn't bad in the first place, there has been incredibly bizarre marketing for this. It's almost like they're trying to speed run not having anyone to go see your movie, ignoring the fact that they do the usual PR cover-up where they solely promote the movie with positive reviews, beside this quite literally being the worst rated review of the franchise. A couple of weeks before this movie came out, they did a partnership with Meta AI where quote-unquote fans of the franchise could put themselves into scenes with Ghostface using AI, the bane of my fucking existence. I'm hoping that this is the year it finally dies off, making companies lose millions, if not billions, because so many people are starting to get sick of AI. Unfortunately, the vocal majority still likes and uses it, even though it is actively destroying the environment, and who recently brought out a genuine, actually real statement that we are running out of drinking water, which, while they didn't say so, is absolutely because of the AI use. But that was one thing they did. Another thing they did was partner with the company called Klarna, which is a gambling company. I hate gambling. I don't see the point in gambling. I feel like anyone who actively gambles is a fucking loser. If you get addicted to that shit, you genuinely have something wrong with you. What they did for the movie was partner with this company, betting on who would die or who the killer is, and there wasn't even a shred of irony when this happens too. So it was odd to see. These are the main marketing things that turned me away from this movie, especially, however, I did say, judging by the title, that this is a review, so I should probably do something here, even though it's not obvious. This video is more of an unreview, just because I have so much disdain for what they've done to this movie, but I'm so used to reviews on this video, on this channel. I'm so used to reviews, and this video has felt more like a scripted stream of consciousness. So what do I do? What to do? Well, Scream is a horror comedy directed by Wes Craven. It stars Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, and Drew Barrymore. The movie is infamous for its meta-commentary on the horror genre, which provided fans a relatable look, which proved to people that the people writing it was just like them. I can't remember when I first watched the first movie, but I was blown away by how incredible the movie is. First, I'm going to talk about the performances, starting with Neve Campbell. She's known for roles in movies like The Craft and Wild Things. Campbell is great as the final girl in this movie. She remains completely sympathetic from start to finish. But what's great about this movie is they don't write her to be some ditzy girl. As she's an incredibly headstrong character, she constantly stands her ground, and when being confronted with a lot of things that happen to her in the movie, her sarcastic nature is also great to see, as she always has this energy of not taking anything from anyone. Skeet Ulrich plays Billy Loomis. He's known for roles in movies like FNAF 2 and As Good As It Gets. Ulrich does a great job in his role. He's able to have such a good balance at being the typical teenage heartthrob, as it feels like he's always mogging the camera in scenes when he's on screen. Yet at the same time, in the third act, when it's revealed that he's one of the killers, I love how unhinged he becomes at times. He does great at using his eyes, especially as he can convey his insanity so well. Matthew Lillard plays the iconic Stu Macher. He's known for his roles in movies like Scooby-Doo and She's All That. Stu has such a great character in this thing. For most of the movie, Lillard's performance is so endearing to watch. He plays him in such a great juvenile way, and he's just so so goofy throughout the movie, and he has so many great line deliveries that easily gets a laugh all the time. When he is then revealed as the other killer, he does such a great job at acting crazy, as he always goes over the top with it, and it always works for me in this. I never feel like he overacts. You could say he does, but it's done in such a great way. I also love that there's just occasions where he has improvised some lines, and they're honestly incredible. Jamie Kennedy plays Randy Meeks in this. He's known for roles in movies like Romeo and Juliet and Bowfinger. Randy is another great character. They write him to be the film nerd of the movie, where he knows everything there is to know about film, specifically horror movies, naturally, and the way he's able to convey his passion for films is extremely relatable. He has a great energy anytime he's there, and he always manages to steal the scenes whenever he's on screen. I don't need to fully reiterate the plot of this movie just for how iconic it is. I think the cold open is done so well. Casting Drew Barrymore in the opening at the time was a great choice, as she was such a big star, so it must have become an incredible shock when her character gets killed off in a horrific way. The way she portrays herself in peril is so well done. You feel bad for her instantly, because sadly the way the scene is written, it preys upon such natural fears of either home invasion and even random phone calls from strangers. The interaction with the two of them on the phone is great for all the horror movie references, and it instantly proves to the audience that the writers are on the same level as the audience, so it's a great first impression. The rest of the film is just written super well too. There are so many great scenes, not just solely the kills, but seeing the main cast interact with each other is great, as they're written also naturally for teenagers at the time without it feeling dated watching it these days. There's a great scene where it's one of the first times where Sidney is attacked by Ghostface, and it's a standard chase sequence, which makes the scene all that more hilarious, as just before it happens, Sidney laments on the phone how she doesn't like horror movies since the female lead always does something stupid.
What's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door.
Which, funnily enough, she starts off doing before kicking the shit out of Ghostface. And what's great about seeing that is because it isn't just cathartic to see a horror film getting beat up, but it also makes sense when it's revealed later that the killer is literally just another teenager. The last act is one of the best sequences of any horror movie. It's incredibly iconic, for it has the scene of Randy explaining the rules of surviving a horror movie, which I think a lot of people have really taken to heart since this movie has come out. More so fans and not actual horror writers. There's a great moment where Ghostface appears in the house and is creeping on Randy while he's watching Halloween. As he's watching the movie, it has a scene where Michael Myers is creeping up on Jamie Lee Curtis's character, where Randy is actively saying to the TV for Jamie to look behind her, which I always maintain is fully intentional for the fact that the actor's name is also Jamie. The killer reveal at the end is always done well. I feel like no matter when you rewatch it, you can never fully tell how they are setting it up throughout the movie, no matter how many red herrings they put in throughout the runtime. The motives are kind of standard that you would see in other horror movies, but besides, the actual reveals are done well, and what precedes it is really entertaining for the interactions between all of the characters, for like how I said, how unhinged the performances get. It manages to be really funny while also realistically scary all at once. There's good use of fun camera angles throughout the runtime. There's a great abundance of Dutch angles which do well at showcasing a lot of the dramatic moments. This is one of the only main creative techniques done throughout the film, but it still makes for a really engaging watch throughout. Now, whenever I talk about horror movies, I always talk about how scary they are or aren't, and while this is an older movie, there are some jump scares hidden throughout it, which for the most time aren't done well. However, I will give it credit that there is at least one or two that are done pretty well. Most of the horror can come from how realistic they make the entire situation. This feels like something that could actually happen. A lot of the kills are done pretty well, from the opening kill to the kill in the garage, which looking back on it might not be incredibly realistic from the way it is actually done. Honestly, look, I could go on and on because so many aspects of this movie just works on so many levels, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself, since obviously this isn't a review of the original movie. This is totally a Scream 7 review, as you can see by the title. But yeah, as I keep saying, I don't feel the need to review or even see the new movie, as to me the franchise has ended with 6, since from what I've been seeing the story of 7 gets so far removed from what 6 have been setting up, so it's incredibly disappointing to see. I feel like this video might give me some flack. It could be seen as too clickbaity or too politically charged, but I think there has to be a stance to be made with some Hollywood films. Film in general is inherently political. I don't need to feed you that information, everyone knows this. So for a company to make such a shitty decision all for the sake of money honestly isn't all that surprising to me. If you are a fan of these movies and you have a spine, I would recommend not seeing this movie in the theater. Don't go support this. At least don't support the filmmakers that made this specific entry. Not only is it not meant to be enjoyable or even well made in context of it being made, it sets a standard for films that can be made under the guise of government control and especially fear, which is so ironic for this being a horror movie. After all, a franchise that has always, almost since its inception, been a political as fuck. So with all that being said, fuck this movie. Fuck Spyglass for firing actors over their opinions. Even saying opinions doesn't feel right, because the opinion of someone that just cares about human life, saying that is crazy. To an extent, this is such a spiritually Israeli film. Before I get people down my throats saying that phrase, I want to point out that that is not an anti-Semitic statement, as Israel is a country that has so many different religions. So obviously that isn't pointing out anything specific. I don't want to get sniped after this video. Please educate yourself on this matter. Again, in saying that, I do not consider the state of Israel a genuine country. Death to the IDF. And forever free Palestine. Fuck you, Spyglass. I'm not giving you my money for your piece of shit bastardization of a franchise. Don't go see this.